up first. I haven't warmed up yet today, so I'd run through a warm up and get everyone going. So we're trying to keep things short and sweet, just a little bit of movement before we get going. I was actually kind of contemplating something earlier today about just like a mindset around, well, like exercise or abilities. And I'm sure a lot of you have had, what's the name? I know it's Carol something. I forgot the name off the top of my head, but it's the growth mindset, Carol Dweck, I believe it is. And just about kind of brick brain versus bubblegum brain, and just the ability that people have to do things that they put their mind to. And I got something coming here, it looks like. There. Yeah, and just how people kind of put their mind to something and then make a decision before they've even tried. So, for example, I was just seeing a patient earlier, and trying to get them moving around a little bit and getting them walking again here in the hospital when they've been sick for a while, and they kind of prejudged or pre-made a decision in their mind that they can't walk, and they were able to walk before coming to the hospital, and it hasn't been a whole lot of time since they've walked, but for whatever reason in their head they can't. And when you come in with that kind of an attitude, it's pretty hard to do something when you've already predetermined that you can't do something. So I'm like, well, let's just start with what you can do. And then I can't do anything. Can't move. Can you move your foot? I can't move my foot. Like, well, what's wrong with your foot? You're here not for your foot. You're here for a different medical problem, but not your foot. I can't. Well, let's just try. So then they move their foot. I'm like, look, you can move your foot. Let's try your leg. And then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to the point where they continue to come up with barriers about what they can and cannot do without trying first. And then realizing after working together for 20 minutes, half an hour, that they were actually able to walk. But if I had just given up on them and just said, yeah, I can't, okay, well, I guess you can't then, and just walked away, then they would have just basically, who knows where that person would have ended up. You think they may or may not have even walked again in their life. But because, the mindset is such a strong thing, when you go into a situation thinking that you can't do something, when you haven't even tried it, then of course you can't do it because you basically predetermine your fate. So there's just something to ponder for the day. And your mind is a very powerful tool that you have at your disposal. And you can use it for positive and for good, or you can just kind of give up before you've even tried. And I guess accept the fact that you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of things, which is kind of sad and unfortunate when I see it in people that, especially my kids, when I see they have so much potential and so much abilities, they have so many gifts, but when they say they can't do something before they've even tried it, it breaks my heart because you're just limiting your potential, basically. I got some people coming here, so I'm gonna have to get out of the way in a second here. Right. I just usually stop talking when people come because they get weirded out when I'm filming, and they're like, "What the heck are you doing over there, talking to yourself in the corner of the bottom of the staircase in the basement here?" But I think people have kind of gotten used to me working out down here because it's basically every time I'm here, do a little workout, because again, that's a mindset thing. Is if I just tell myself I can't do it, then of course I can't do it. So I just do what I can, and it might not be the best workout every single time, but you make the most of it. And usually I find once I get down here and start moving around and get the blood flowing a little bit, it actually works out okay. And I really like to use these opportunities in the stairs to work on exercises that I don't typically work on, especially when I'm at the gym in the weight room. Because typically when I'm in the weight room in the gym, I want to do the big power movements like squats and deadlifts and bench press and all that good stuff. But I usually neglect the little stability muscles that probably need a lot of work, mobility, that kind of thing, which again is equally, if not just as important or more important than some of the strength work, because if you're always strengthening and never working through mobility, you're actually probably limiting how much strength you can produce or gain over the course of time. If you've got limber joints and limbs and able to get more range of motion from those limbs, from the joints, then over time you'll actually probably be stronger. Okay, so let's try a couple things here. Got my stretchy staircase there. I'm basically going to do a side step. So I'm going to go lateral on the staircase. I'm going to go from the second stair. Obviously, you can go from the first stair. Second stair, so really what I'm trying to do is use the top leg to use the strength of my top leg to elevate. And then to slowly, we call it eccentrically, but I sometimes fail at the end there, to slowly lower yourself down. So you want your foot nice and straight, so my toe is pointing directly at the wall. I want to try to load above the knee so I get a nice straight angle of push down through my knee. But of course, as I'm moving laterally, there's going to be a bit of a shift or a lateral movement, and then a lateral movement back as well. But again, really trying to use this leg to push off and not push off the bottom knee. That's actually quite challenging to do, especially if you're not super strong. So if you find yourself really pushing that back leg, start from a lower surface, obviously it's way easier. And you can do that eccentric load much easier, obviously. Handrails obviously important if you feel you need it. So I'm going to do, let's just, and again, I don't even really count as I've said in the past, but again, I'm trying not to hold on because I want to work the stability of the foot and the ankle, the hip, and then I'll do a few on the other side to flip around and show you the other angle of that. And it really gets that quad going. You should get that glute engaged of that top leg, so the glute of the upper leg working a lot as well to stabilize. And then here's the other angle from my back. And again, really try not to push off the bottom leg, but really use that top leg to do all the movement, and also a slow, controlled descent, which is equally, if not more important than the raise. This is harder to do off the third step. I was debating whether I should try doing a third step for this video, but I think that one might be a little bit too high. Just put your hip in a bit of a compromised position, so I didn't get full extension there. Also, that's a good point. Full extension at the top. You want to get that leg straight and extend through your hip, squeeze your back at the top of that step. Really important to get that full range. And kind of, I wouldn't necessarily lock the knee, but you can lock the knee for a split second. And then slowly down. Sure, probably got somebody coming down the stairs here, so move the weight. Oh, there we go. Okay, next thing, let's try a floor exercise here. See how you can see that. Just angle it down. I'll flip around, so I'm going to do a bit of a shoulder exercise here. I'll go this way. So I'm going to have my little trusty weights. If you don't have weights, you don't have to use weights. If you want, you can use a water bottle or something like that. I'm going to go flat on my back. My rib is still a little bit tender. With this, once I get extended, just a little side note here, keep the rib cage down. So you shouldn't arch up the ribs too much. There's somebody coming here. Pass. Think about keeping your rib cage like depressed, especially the bottom half right of your ribs. So you don't want to be flaring up your rib cage, and you shouldn't have a huge ginormous gap behind your back. You should have a relatively flat back for the most part. Squish the ribs straight down, and then you're going to elevate or raise your hands over your head while really focusing on keeping those rib cage down. And what I'm going to do is just kind of do a little bit of perturbation, I'm going to call it, but just a little bit of up and down my arm. Elbow straight, focusing on keeping that rib cage down and getting that nice overhead stretch to the shoulders. But really, so this is actually a bit of a core exercise as well as a shoulder exercise, but scapular stability exercise too. This is great for volleyball players, swimmers, things that you do overhead, throwers. But if you do it well, you actually probably find it's quite tight for your shoulders. And it works your core quite substantially. And there's ways to make this more of a core exercise if you want by, for example, kicking your legs kicking your legs at one at a time. I just get the camera there, but that's actually pretty tricky for me. I don't know if you've seen my other videos recently, but I injured my rib, what is it, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it's still a little tender. Although I've been starting to work out quite, I'm not going to say aggressively, but almost back to my normal workouts. But I am noticing there's a few limitations still around that. So just trying to be aware of it. Actually, I'm probably about 5, 6 weeks now, actually, probably almost 6 weeks. And then really thinking about that squeeze down the rib cage. That's actually pretty challenging for my left shoulder, actually. So you may notice some tightness. And if you do notice that, just don't go quite so far back. Right? My battery's down here. Okay, cool. Next one. I got a good core one here for you too. Okay, so it's kind of like a plank, but I've done this in a different video before, but we'll try it again. So you basically start up into this push-up position, nice straight back to your legs, straight line from your head to your heels, and then just gonna get down on the elbows, do that plank, and back with the push-up. So a bit of a cardio, bit of a core, your shoulders, triceps, but fun ones you gotta throw in every once in a while, just to kind of vary up your routine. But I always, again, try to keep things changing, right? Really, it's about trying to get your body to guess and adapt to the stimulus you're putting at it. Because if you're constantly giving it new stimuli, switch my lead hand, then it's always trying to build strength and flexibility, mobility, endurance to those things that you're constantly throwing at it, right? Oh, a couple more. I'm gonna probably have some income here. Whew. Right, swing around. Yeah, don't be sorry, you're good. So I've done a variation of this in the past. I'm going to do a bit of an easier version, but a bit of, again, a core exercise from the shoulder, or from the elbow, sorry. And then I'm trying to stay as flat as I can, kind of perpendicular to the floor. And then I'm just kind of letting my hip drop and then coming back into that side plank position. And then working the obliques, working that side glute. And then working the shoulder stability as well. This can be done from a straight arm. I find it bothers my wrist, so I don't like to do that. You technically can do it from up here too, much harder. You'll notice, and even if you see I'm quite wobbly. I don't like that in my wrist actually, so I prefer it from the elbow, but something to work towards. And if you did want to try it from your hand, I would suggest holding like a dumbbell along the ground, and then that will keep your wrists a bit more neutral and let's say quote unquote easier on your wrist, because you can load your wrists in that kind of neutral position if I was holding a dumbbell, for example, down there. All right. Okay. Simple one, fun one. I like this one, but I'm just going to do some calf raise. I'm going to add a little hop at the bottom. I'm going to go single leg, obviously, you can go both. But bottom, and then a little hop at the top just to work on my jump. So I'm trying to make sure I keep the ball of my foot up on the stair. And then my knees relatively straight. Let me go up a little bit. Knees relatively straight, but does bend a little bit to allow a bit of a spring. And I am holding with my hands on the rails just for balance more so than anything else. You don't have to, obviously. But working on some explosive strength, loading through the calf. Again, just kind of play any jumping sports, but just not even for that, for anything really. Good for balance. Just a fun little exercise you can do with your calves. I rarely work on my calves actually. So something that you can throw in. And again, you don't have to do the hop. You can just do this as a traditional calf raise. Or just for something different, that bent knee calf raise. If you want to try some different stuff on here, I'm throwing a few things in. Sorry, I guess I should have saved that for another exercise video. But do make sure you're trying to get up and down so you're not just moving the ankle, but it's more my body doesn't move a whole lot except the ankle. Here's someone coming. Here we go. Okay. Next one, last one. Kind of, I'm going to call it an end range lunge, end range split squat, but kind of working that inner quad muscle, the VMO. Balance through holding on to something. I've got this nice little spot where I can lean on the walls here. But I'm really trying to lift the knee a couple inches off the ground and then back down. So I don't know how well you can see that. But I'm going to load most of my weight to the back leg, let's say 70% to 30 in the front. And it's just like a little bit of a lift and back down. Doesn't seem like a whole lot initially, but you're going to get that burn pretty quick. And like I said, less is more in terms of the height. And again, it's at 70, 30, so 70% of my weight. So I'm leaning back. I'm not really leaning back, but loading that back leg. The front leg is not doing a whole lot in this position. But that's a huge burn. You should feel that in the kind of top of the quad. I just roll up my shorts here so you can have a better look at what I'm trying to work with. That VMO muscle, this muscle here, that bad boy there. So, I mean, you got the walls if you need it. You know, you don't have to. But again, 70%, 30% in terms of how much weight I'm putting on each leg. And again, less is more in terms of how much height I'm getting off the ground on that back knee. And again, you'll get that burn pretty quick if done right. I'm just going to do a couple more reps here. Burn out pretty good. A couple more. Cool. Okay, thanks guys for another video. My battery's dying here, so I'm going to call it quits. But I'm going to probably do another round of that. Make sure you follow along, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.